We are back in action here with Salty Runback's continued coverage of the 2024 CLOL Championship. And it was certainly a wacky game one as we bring back in our special guest, TJ, at Command Attack on Twitter. TJ, just give me your thoughts on what we just watched transpire on Summoner's Rift to give Slew the lead.
Kind of looked like a, Salty Teemo bronze game to me, to be honest. I don't really know what we were watching for the first 10 minutes. I did clean up a little bit towards the 15-minute point, but I think the really key point here is that Winthrop was in a really, really winning position at the start of the game based on this TF blind and maybe some misexecutions. But unfortunately, they still weren't able to come through with that big of a lead. So I think that's a bit concerning. I think that they really need to throw something different at the board here and lock in, as all the kids are saying, because it is time, right? Like, you're down 0-1 now. You had your free throw, but unfortunately, here we are. So I'd love to see something different.
Yeah, two things here. For Winthrop, obviously for our keys to success, we were talking about, like, hey, get some comfort picks. They have been on a little bit of a losing streak. They obviously had to play up against Maryville in their most recent matchup. But also, Winthrop are a team that I think can get a little bit in their own heads. When we have talked to them in the past, they are, so one of the big things is that they were a little tilted about not qualifying again into the promotion tournament. And they're also a team that does tend to sometimes play, like, if we're better than our opponents, we are going to treat them as such. We're going to treat them as lower than ourselves. And I think in a series where you have teams that are going to be able to match you individually speaking, this is going to be a small issue there when Winthrop have not been the cleanest throughout the entire year. They have not had, especially coming into this tournament. When we were talking about the very beginning, when we saw this kind of lineup, they were taking wins. They won HughFest. They were doing very well. But towards the back end of this year, as we get closer and closer to the end of the Collegiate Championship, this team, I think, has had struggles with kind of petering out and kind of finding those wins and clutching out, or closing out games, I should say.
Well, the one lucky thing about is that they've already been able to come back from reverse sweep, and honestly,
yes.
a bigger pressurized one. And while we're not at that scenario yet, it's worth pointing out that, that does give you that sort of buff that you have played from a worse position already in this loser's bracket. We're about to get set, though, to go into game number 2, draft, and I'm curious, Alk, you talked about it as, hey, there we go, right on draft. You talked about that, how big that Talia was for Dark Wings. Do you think Winthrop adjust to throw that a ban as they stay on the blue side? Or swap to the blue side, excuse me.
I think if we're going to give it over to Sword, I think that'd be perfectly fine. But again, I think there is also some execution things. We talked about some of the questions we had about draft. I think rightfully so when we saw the execution on that game. But also, I don't think it, like, the execution is going to be there regardless of what champions you pick. Your understanding of how your team composition works and how you're able to kind of get through the rest of the game is kind of down to your practice and how much individually you guys are able to work together. So I am more so looking, it is also just one game. I think at the end of this, we look back on this series, whatever happens, if Winthrop end up winning, game 1 might just be a blip on the radar for us, but we'll see. Now kind of going into this, we do have the Twisted Fate ban, so already taking that away from Surdy. Callista as well here for Aaron. I wonder if they are going to continue on with this Varus train, because they did ban out 380 carries in the last game.
TF ban is absolutely crazy. That is so
Yeah, they throw it down. It does look like for St. Louis University, though, they're sticking with the same mid bans. They know that Darkwing's not a fan of the Aurelion Soul, especially on the red side. I feel like you don't really want to give Ashe up. I feel like that could be a decent B1. So kind of seen a lot of TJ from teams in a winning position. They like to stick with similar bans because why fix what wasn't broken? Excuse me.
Ooh,
Yeah, exactly. They don't have to switch it up. I think really cool on this Talia ban is that LeBlanc is one of the harder matchups into Talia when paired with an aggressive jungler like Jarvan. So we were able to see it played well enough last game that it probably does warrant a ban because it really does just counter so many champions in the game.
Oh, and there's that Varus we were talking about, right?
Yep.
Like, someone we haven't seen from Mobility this entire tournament. He's picked almost every other AD carry that has been really popular so far. I mean, we got a lot of Callista games. We've gotten Lucian, Jinx, but not really a Varus player. So we'll see how Mobility is able to pilot this and how Winthrop as a whole are able to bring this into their strategy, as now SLU grabbing themselves an Orianna as well as the Senna, a really popular pairing for Aaron and Skytech just because we have seen a ton of Senna throughout this tournament, but I think for SLU, where their bottom lane aren't necessarily the biggest standout players for this team when we come to team fights, I think really important for them to have. And a nice takeaway as Nautilus I think has been kind of the premier pairing so far throughout both CLOL and when we look into professional in Tier 1.
Yeah, that was the point I was about to make, is that both, really good pairings for Senna. TK is a little bit lesser so compared to the recent patches, but yeah, Nautilus, good takeaway. And TJ, one of those champions, got to give you credit there on your TJ's tech. You talked about the Nico earlier on. Nico going to be brought into this game for Winthrop as we do see the TK go next to that Senna for SLU.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Braum here instead of a TK either. It does look pretty good into the Nico and does produce a lot of Varus' damage output, but obviously TK is a stable pick, so that one's cool there too.
Okay. So Kindred, probably going to be seeing a large focus in terms of the bans on our junglers here. TJ, wanted to ask you, knowing our two junglers here, what do you think we should be looking for either side in terms of what kind of I think would help with their identity and their comp?
Well, since Winthrop picked Nico, they have to go in to win.
Yeah.
So if SLU picks some sort of mid-range bruiser that denies access, it really makes her game a lot harder. Just something that can mark her. So if you pick Lee Sin here and explicitly play to remove Nico, Winthrop's win con goes a bit out the window.
Yeah. I don't think Winnie understands the potential of knocking someone away. I think he really wants to press Q flash, ult someone into his team and kill them.
I believe it. Don't worry.
Okay. Respect.
Hey, I mean,
well, I don't believe it's Lee Sin, let's be clear, but I do believe in him to know that.
Yeah. Okay, we got there. Slayer, get in there.
We do see the Rek'Sai come out here, which I feel like technically is kind of a flex pick. I think in this tournament we've seen Rek'Sai a couple times in the jungle. You can't always throw a top side, but the jungle answer here for Wokao is going to be that Viego. So got him on that big scaling damage threat jungler. I don't know how much I was expecting that from Winthrop, given their comps the last couple of series.
Yeah, we get so we get Denethor on Cassante. A lot of options here for Surdy. We saw that Vayne ban, so kind of like a heads up. Twisted Fate being gone as well. I wonder what Surdy is going to kind of be leaning towards. We have seen some other ranged counter picks. We've also still have the Rumble available, but SLU instead opting for an Olaf. So Olaf, I think, a little bit confusing, although you do have a Senna, you have an Orianna right there, so SLU can fight back, but I think the team fights are going to be a little bit different here as Winthrop really want to find that first kill, really want to find that first punch coming into team fights.
I'm not confused by the Olaf because he gets to keep his ult up forever, gets to walk through Nico, gets to tank Varus ult, and this character can go crazy here. He can mark Viego instead. He has a lot of different functions he can perform here, so Olaf is a bit, he's really strong here.
Okay.
Really strong. Okay, all right. And this is the first time, TJ, that we've seen SLU R5 for Surdy, right? It's not blind picking for Surdy. So we'll see exactly how this plays out on the Rift. We are set once again to go on to Summer's Rift. Game number 2, SLU versus Winthrop.
I am interested to see if SLU were going for some R5s here. And already, Slayer, you're getting owned. Their first game against Iona, R5 Rumble. Let's see.
But you said earlier that series doesn't matter for anything.
True, except for when I'm right, and then it matters. We have. Let's see. You can keep talking about this. It looks like SLU again. They want to try to get some early vision down, getting some seeing where their opponents are. Now, that one ward that we do have from the side of Winthrop, do spot them out, and so potentially we can start to see a level 1 here. SLU's level 1 is not particularly dangerous. They do have an Olaf, so him being able to chase someone individually is going to be very strong. But with a Nautilus, with a Varus very early, could be kind of dangerous, as Winthrop could start to fish.
Chucky's looking for an angle there, but they're just going to get out. They've got some pretty good wards down as well to try and track the paths. It looks like Skytech and Aaron are hanging up topside, so
yeah.
They are going to try and set up the lane swap, but in reality, we're just swapping lanes, not matchups, as Chucky's and Mobility also are going to roam up topside.
Geographically speaking, they will be on the same side of the map, basically. Also, I looked at it. In their last series against Ole Miss, Slew did R5 Olaf and Gwen. So we have had a couple of them, but yeah, so for the most part, Surdy has been someone who his first three are going to be looking to pick up these champions. So we'll see what he's able to do. Also, kind of interested to see what Denethor is able to do, just because we know that Olaf has to take a little bit of time. Whether or not he can do some tricky things with the wave to try to avoid Olaf very early on as Cassante, as a lot of his power has been taken out of his laning phase individually. And also, it does mean that with bottom lanes moving away from this dragon, we'll see how much priority actually goes on to this objective. Maybe after the first recall, maybe after the first two, they will end up going back towards down to the bottom lane just to set themselves up for that objective. But, you know, setting up when we get to 5.5 minutes, a couple of seconds before the first grubs, it will be pretty important to see how both teams are setting up.
Look, I'm just happy, though. We talked about a bit that these top players are willing to surrender for their lanes, but now they're picking for their matchup. And look at the brawl starting to go here. Flash knockup. Woody does not get it onto Denethor. Has the ghost popped. Gets the slow from the axe. Surge is looking to churn out these axes. Good dodge from Denethor. He's got some jukes there to make good old Patches O'Houlihan pretty happy.
Yeah, but look at that wave. That wave is not looking good. Surdy doesn't have teleport and did just use the ghost like we were just talking about, but more than happy to keep the wave here and force Denethor to have to teleport. Great job from Winnie to try to find a little bit of action. Is also able to then go back to his camps and can actually rebound this to try to go top lane here after finishing his blue buff. So a couple of options for Winnie. He can try to contest, but I think contesting for bottom side is definitely not going to be, I think, a little bit playable. Slew.
Whoa.
Slew.
Talk about mobility. Varus hasn't paylated a lot. Well, he just got first blood for Winthrop in the top side, and they might look for more here. Flash away from the dredge line for Skytech. The only reason it's not a double up for the Winthrop bottom lane.
Okay. And now Viego going for an invade. I don't think Wolfsaw is going to really get too much value from this Viego and stealing away those camps. Also has access to whichever scuttle he wants. Really, honestly, if I'm Viego, maybe you try to be a little bit more aggressive and call your bottom lane over. You already see Chookies is moving. Gets spotted by Tremor Sense here. I think cutting through mid might be a little dangerous, but there's an option, I think, for Winthrop to have access to both scuttles and cut Winnie off very early.
Oh, we were looking for it, though. We highlighted it as a bit of a welterweight matchup. Last game, it wasn't really too much about the bottom lanes either. Mostly the Darkwing showing now. Chookies is looking to just affect the map as much as possible. Claims his second flash in 4 minutes of the game.
Really, really good, especially for Viego, who early on, a lot of his power budget is spent on having a stun and having some increased mobility and being an okay duelist thanks to his passive, but being able to grab Flash from a mid laner like Orianna pretty early on does set up, especially now that they're level 5. We have Dragon spawning a little bit. If Sword is able to get his ultimate, that is something that coming later into this game or for the next 4 minutes, that is a timer for them to look for, especially if Chookies does have a little bit of a time to walk down into mid lane. That's something that they can try to punish if you're Winthrop.
Winthrop having that power angle with mobility, grabbing that early gold, already back to lane with a pickaxe, and it is going to be that on-hit Varus into this Tahm Kench, into what Rek'Sai will be a bit of a bruiser. Olaf will have some health as well. And Varus in a game where Slew's front line's going to run at you. This could just be a mobility angle on a pick that you talked about a lot. Mobility is not shown to play.
I wish him best of luck. I'm going to keep it a stack. As an AD carry player, Olaf is literally my worst nightmare. Like, this champion just runs at you. I mean, you should know this, Slayer, but, like, this Olaf champion just runs at you, and then he keeps running at you, and he takes no damage. And as an AD carry, especially one without an innate dash that can get over walls and create terrain, create space, he's going to be very difficult for them to deal with. So, Darkwing's already using the ultimate, trying to get some damage out onto Sword. Will mean that they're able to move over for this Drake. I would have thought maybe Slew could play for top lane. I know that the wave is currently under their turret, but Grubs being able to give so many souls to Senna is one way that you can try to accelerate her. And instead opting for the Drake trade, playing around their strong side of top lane just because of the matchup. We'll see how much they're actually able to get off of this. We did see that Slew in the last game were able to get the first 2 Drakes. then kind of petered off and really didn't care. Or sorry, they got the last 2 Drakes and were able to kind of end out that game. But Drake's not really being as important of a condition, I think, as now Winthrop grabbing themselves the grubs. If they're able to get more turret damage on this top side, maybe Varus gets a lot of gold. He can kind of spike in that mid game to have his items before his opponents. That's something that could potentially change the landscape of this game.
Certainly seems that is the case for the Golden Eagles. That's what they're looking to play for. And also, you can see the fact that Mobility constantly has power over this top wave, this top lane, because Aaron is roaming and Skytech doesn't have a chance up against Varus means Wokow can get a lot of resources as well on a Viego that definitely needs them.
He's almost level 6. Should be finishing it after these Krugs. Or I guess there's no Krugs for him to steal. So if they go for this dive, I mean, Skytech has ultimate. It has to be eyes on Aaron, but really tough to get this down.
Gets rooted by the Chains of Corruption. Uses all of his gray health. A couple more autos from Mobility could get it. The E nearly to find it. And this is lining up great for Wokow. There's the gray health
shield.
once more. Sword is here as well with the pop loss. I'm going to go for it. Flashes, grabs Skytech. Reset comes across here for Wokow, but Sword is going to be the trade as when he has to flash back under the turret. And the dive, for now, only a trade, but Wokow has that possession, has the Heartbreaker reset if he wants it. Someone has to take aggro. Aaron going to get rooted up here. They're going to go all in for the Senna. They turn on to Winnie, get that kill. It is a masterful dive. The reset, so well played for Wokow. And Winthrop have their lane advantage in droves for Mobility.
Oh, Darkwings, maybe just trying to catch Mobility at the very, very edge of the ultimate, but he's not able to find that. The Shockwave does not ring true onto Mobility, and he has so much gold now. Got a turret plate in that instance, got so many of the kills, has a natural farm advantage thanks to just playing the matchup. And now for Winthrop, we'll have to see how they actually are able to leverage his ability to win team fights. Because Mobility, I think with a lead, has been really, really good at being able to push the limits on what he's able to do. But also, I think, as a double-edged sword, does sometimes end up getting caught in team fights. So, true of both of our bottom laners here across from him, Aaron, as well on the Senna. But we'll have a lot of added utility thanks to the fact that you're just playing Senna, guys. Like, has a heal, has a shield. Was also able to give his teammates a lot of great movement speed thanks to the E. And we'll see what Winthrop are able to do. Again, Dragon's not spawning for another 2.5 minutes, but you have to be afraid as Senna and Tahm Kench. Like, yes, you're going to be able to scale into the game, but I mean, we're just taking trades. We're taking so much loss in terms of our HP.
That Chains of Corruption down again. Forces Skytech back. The gray health really getting its value, though, in this matchup. Sword did roam up there as well, which gives Darkwing some time to get some plates back and get a solo plate back in that mid lane. But the gold lead still, so I was actually wrong, doesn't get that plate at all. So
maybe later.
Yeah, maybe later. Gold lead slightly in favor of the Golden Eagles, and you got to think that it's all in the hands of Mobility right now.
For sure. Mobility definitely looking good. Also, Surdy is starting to kind of climb his lead a little bit, but individually, we're really looking for Surdy to be more impactful when it comes to maybe finishing his first item and definitely in team fights, especially with the Ghost and the Ultimate available. It would be so dangerous, I think, for Winthrop to try to ignore him. Now, all eyes kind of fall towards Mobility. Obviously, Trix, Wokow, and Sword will still have their game-changing ultimates that are able to kind of affect the team fight, but push come to shove, you're going to be walking into an Orianna. If she has set up first, you're going to be walking blind into a Shockwave. You're also still going to be able to have to deal with Surdy. I think Skytech just taking so much damage. One of the strong kind of points of playing a tank in any kind of lane is when do you take damage? When am I allowed to tank damage, and when am I allowed to kind of sit back and wait for my team? And in this instance, thanks to Skytech having teleport, he can kind of be a little bit more flagrant with it, but I think taking so much damage is causing for Winthrop to get more and more gold than maybe I expect them to have at this moment.
Yeah, Touch of the Void really getting its value too by this point, right? Helping knock down those plates. Denethor on the weak side, though, is going to eat the dive here. Ragnarok going to come out from Surdy. Good jukes there from Denethor. Turn aggro was pulled. Now don't have the Ragnarok. Has to use the Void Rush, and Winnie is going to grab it for Surdy. Wasn't the cleanest of dives, but they do get a kill onto that coveted Olaf.
For sure. I thought maybe this was a little bit questionable. I saw the start of that play, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to go well, but they end up executing on it. it's really good for Rek'Sai to start tanking the turret with ultimate thanks to being able to reset turret aggro like we saw. So great job from St. Louis. They're able to then grab that kill, get a little bit of damage onto that turret, but most importantly get their recalls in right before this dragon spawns. And now Winthrop, they are going to go back to some of their standard laning phases here by putting Denethor back in the top lane, who has teleport. He can't show up for this fight. And Slew with a pretty meaningful advantage. I mean, Surdy is not going to be there, so I'm a little bit hesitant as to say whether or not Slew should be contesting for this. You really want to either try to put Surdy in a position to try to kill mobility, or just say, look, we're going to continue to generate another advantage in the side lane. But also, Winthrop did grab themselves 6 grubs, so a little bit difficult in terms of how much damage Surdy is going to be able to do to be able to put onto turrets.
I really like that play from Winthrop, though, recognizing their timers on that reset. It's rare that you see a game that's that's as close as this, where a team gets all 6 Void Grubs and is able to grab one of the first 2 Drakes. And Winthrop are in that position, but they are bleeding on that side lane as Denethor is starting to really feel the pain of Surdy's axes by this point.
Surdy's ultimate should be coming up soon, so if they're not going to dive on this wave, it's probably going to be on the next one. We also saw that Skytech was on the move, but for the time being, it looks like they really want to force it. On the opposite side, there's the same play happening bottom lane. Winnie trying to find this kill onto Denethor. Aaron just flashed, so they are really indexing on trying to get bottom lane here. Darkwings by himself has ultimate able to clear the wave if he wants.
Shockwave only can hit Chookies, gets rooted by the Pop Blossom, and there's a clean dive for you. Chookies looking to go onto Aaron, though. Takes the turret dredge line, gets out of the turret aggro, and Chookies is on a masterclass Nautilus game, able to find Aaron. That's 2 back for Winthrop.
But why is Aaron there? Like, Aaron should just never be in that position. Your Orianna just died. You do not have Tom Kench with you. Just give up the wave. Because now you're going to have to give up the wave anyway, get more turret damage, and die for it, while also losing your flash. So a pretty big mistake coming out from Slew's bottom laner.
Divomania, though, continuing. Great reset on the turret aggro. Surdy able to flash out. So Denethor definitely on weak side duty. Clear power lines for both of these teams as we surge towards the mid game.
So now Mobility is getting a surge of gold, like we were just talking about. They also were able to grab themselves the dragon as Winthrop. Very, very dangerous here. Remember, those 6 grubs just means that turrets evaporate in front of them if they have time to start hitting them. Even with the turret plates, even with that fortification, they were able to grab a ton of plates here. So, again, Mobility has been someone who on this roster has had really high highs, and I think that's something we could say for all of Winthrop as a whole. They have been able to really be super dominant, especially when we look at them in Challengers League qualifiers, but also sometimes falling short of a lot of those expectations when we look at this team. So, coming off of a game 1 where they were in a dominant position, game 2 again, they have a pretty solid early game coming in with some, some freebies, I think, from Slew given to them. Winthrop now are able to grab themselves a Rift Herald, and we have Dragon in 2.5 minutes. This should be a timer for them to grab a little bit more gold. They can go for mid if they want. Denethor is also going to be able to trade top tier 1 with bottom for against Surdy. I think a perfectly fine position if you're Winthrop.
Oh, minion trick gets the flash on the Dark Wings, and Skytech is as good as dead. Is able to get the flash off. Depth charge won't be lethal. Chucky's now a little too far up. Winnie looking to create a flank angle. Chucky's getting hounded by Aaron. Winnie looking to go in here. Flashes away from the Rek'Sai on the Unburrow. Chucky's will stay safe. Nobody dying in that mid play.
If you are under 18, please look away from the screen. There are things happening on the screen that are probably not safe for minors. I'm really sorry for everybody at home. There is some gaming going on. We are doing things for sure. You cannot say there's inaction, but it is not the most clean. I think Slew are getting a little bit too much in the mud here with their opponents. Winnie just trying to look for whatever engage. Did force out a couple of the summoner spells, so really good for the side of Winthrop that they're able to grab Orianna flash right before that object. Oh my.
Well, I think Denethor's just going to take the turret, Skytech. Oh! So, okay, that's 700 gold. That's worth for Denethor.
Yeah, he got the turret there. It is going to be gold going over to Skytech, which as a Tom Kench, he's just going to get tankier and tankier, especially with how much gold he's getting for himself. But in trade, Winthrop, they lost our top laner, but they got top tier 2. They got top tier 1 as well, actually, during that entire push. And they got the mid lane turret, so really opening up the map. Denethor recognizing that this game is not about him, and I think that that's okay. He's just like, okay, I'm playing Cassante. I'm going to have a similar kind of profile to Olaf, just with a lot less gold. I'm here to take one member out of a fight, pressure them off of an objective alongside my team, and buy space for someone like Mobility to really be able to open up with this Varus.
And also Wokow, I mean, is up in camps, 1-0-4 now on this Viego. And Viego certainly, you got to feel like, becomes a lot more powerful compared to a Rek'Sai as this game goes on. It really is, for me, all starting to feel like Winthrop have gotten so many advantages in a couple of spots that it's going to be up to Surdy to really knock down those carries. But, like we also heard you and Command Attack talk about in the draft, it's a really good position for this Olaf to run wild.
Olaf, just like, he can just ignore the gold lead at this point. Like, he is very strong. It's also, when you talk about, like, individually, yes, it is going to be a lot of this is on Surdy, but a lot of the value is also just going to have to come from the fact that we just have a Senna on our team, and we also have an Execute with Winnie. We also have Orianna. Instead, playing away from the objective, just wanting to get more and more gold, open up the rest of the map as a whole. We know that Dragon is not going to be a concern, at least for the next 15 minutes in terms of the soul. So I think perfectly fine for Winthrop to just focus on gathering more and more gold for themselves, opening up the map, getting vision, taking away camps from this Viego. And really, I think their big prize is trying to get this mid-tier one. This opens up so much of the map for them if they're able to grab this objective.
Winthrop certainly not going to let it go without a fight. The Nico wave clear, pretty valuable as well. I'm looking to see if Sword can find these big pop blossoms. Big team fight ultimates with both of these mid laners. We haven't seen pop just too heavily yet. Chookies is looking for a cage. It does get the depth charge onto Aaron, trying to knock him back. They're just going to try and burn down Skytech as Aaron has to bail out of the fight. The Abyssal Dive goes right into Denethor. Wokow grabs it. Now here comes the Pop Blossom, and they just knock down Winnie. Clean fight lines from Winthrop, who are trying to avoid an 0-2 collapse once more.
Great job from Winthrop. They find the fight. I was a little bit questionable whether or not that was actually an angle, just because it is a tank landing it onto Skytech, but with no flash available to him, he kind of just gets stuck there, and he's not able to really do all that much, like you said. Now, Denethor utilizing the teleport to get back into this top lane, push this out. And for Winthrop, it's just them finding 2 kills, getting some gold, putting themselves in a map state where, okay, you do not have time to push out a ton of these waves. You do not have time to get more damage or get more chip onto this mid lane, get vision on the bottom side of the map, or even the top side with the Baron spawning in a minute. Good job from Winthrop, and now with the timers between our Dragon and our Baron being a little bit desynced here, you have a Viego, you have a Varus. I think there's a potential angle here if Winthrop are able to find another fight like that to start up the Baron and pull Slew over to that side of the map.
I mean, just look at the sheer item difference between those two that you stated here, right? I understand it's a fasting Senna, but even if you want to look towards Skytech, mobility is up to 2.5 items by this point, heading right towards what I assume is a Terminus, and Wokow is definitely sitting in a good spot as well. Got to think he's pretty close to his second item. And these two, while they both share a letter to start out their champion name, they also share a pretty similar style of just ramping up as this game goes on between Viego and Varus.
May I ask our observer, how many stacks on Senna do we have?
Stack check.
We'll see. Stat check. Can we get it's like stat track, but like a lot worse because we don't have a cool cosmetic. All right, I think we're getting a little bit of a team fight here. Aaron.
Well, they're going for Surdy here. He has to burn the flash. Chookies is burned down very low as well as the dredge line out. Surdy looking for the angle, holding the Ragnarok. Here he goes, exploding. Great shockwave as well. Is going to grab Sword in an instant. Wokow has to bide out of the fight. Denethor shows up to pull Winnie out and just try and stall the rest of Slew. We were waiting for the moment when Surdy decided to pop the Ragnarok and run forward. And what happens? Slew win their first fight.
They wanted to play around this top side. They want to try to bully Slew off of this Baron. And finally, Surdy turns up for a team fight. That's what we've been waiting for if you're a St. Louis fan. And now they'll be able to open up for this Baron. Dragon also spawning in a minute and a half after they finish this objective and get their recalls. Also, barring them not being able to push out their waves for one reason or another, Slew are also now in a good position to be able to take this fourth Dragon, get themselves to 2 with this Genji Baron buff. But I could also see a world where they just say, we have Baron. Winthrop are not anywhere close to a soul, so let's try to use this to continue to push out these waves and put ourselves in a really good map state and make Winthrop have to say, okay, yeah, we're at soul point, but our map is really awful. We lost a lot of structures during this push.
A lot of decisions to make here with the Gen G Baron buff for St. Louis University, but It's kind of the analogy you've seen the ball go in the hoop and how much it could inspire you. They finally see the fight that they drafted for. How much confidence are they going to play with now? Because Winthrop are certainly indexing to try and cover this Drake pit. They have a lot of vision down here. Denethor and Chucky's going to set up to try and clear. And the pressure now becomes onto Slew. How much push can they get in these waves to try and de-incentivize this Dragon take in 45 seconds?
Yeah, so Aaron, thank you to our observer for showing this. 61 stacks with the Senna changes. They've obviously been kind of tinkering with her soul drop rate, but really focused on making sure you try to get stacks by poking the opponent champions here. And now, Slew sitting in mid lane. There is no wave here. Denethor and the entirety of Winthrop have complete access to this bottom side river. And instead giving it up, they want to try to protect their mid-tier 1. And so now Slew, they can just sit here. They continue to try to hammer away at this turret from range, especially with a Senna here. And they also have Orianna, so really tough position now. If Slew can start to clear out a lot of these wards, walking into Fog of War versus a Orianna is so difficult. She controls space with this ball. It makes it so you are not allowed to walk in here without threat of a shockwave or even something like a dissonance.
Well, Chucky's looks for an engage, but he hooks into that brush and just dies. Certainly going to find it, and now the route is on. Skytech going forward. Denethor dives to the Abyssal Dive, has to flash out. Here's the Pop Blossom, but it just finds zero value because Surdy is running rampant. Mobility having to kite back, can't hit any of those priority targets. Wokow's out of the fight as well, and here comes St. Louis University revving up in game 2.
I was a little afraid there. Surdy got very close to dying, but he utilizes the Berserker's Rage. He's able to get out of that fight. They make such good use of this Olaf ultimate, being able to get right into the backline, kill Sword, get rid of Denethor. And it started with Chucky's getting caught out there. I mean, he tries to find the engage, but unfortunately, not every fight is a good fight for Winthrop right now. And so that advantage that we were talking about a little bit earlier is starting to trickle away. This game is only going to get harder for them to deal with as Olaf gets more and more items, as he becomes a bigger menace and something that, again, Winthrop are going to have a tough time trying to be able to deal with. They kind of have to fight on timers where he doesn't have his ultimate, or they're able to kind of separate him and Mobility. But while Mobility hasn't gone down yet, he's now picking up 3 items. I just don't think that within the time that it takes for him to kill Olaf, the rest of his team is going to be able to survive.
And the rest of Winthrop is hinged so much on getting a kill as well. You need that possession on Wokow to really utilize this Viego. Haven't been able to find that window at any point in these last 5 or so minutes, and now they're getting pushed out of their own jungle. Another key itemization completed here I think is huge. Talk about how big this Orianna's been for Dark Wings, has that Rabadon's down, so those shockwaves are really going to start to pack a punch as well.
I was going to say, when we see a lot of these mid laners, when they have Seraphs, not only do they get access to a lot of ability haste, but they also become inherently tankier. You do have to deal with a little bit of a shield, so it's a lot harder for them to actually find that execute for someone like Wokow on this Viego. But Slew now just going to pressure onto this bottom tier 2. They also have Rek'Sai here. Oh, Sword.
Oh, here we go. Big Pop Blossom from Sword once more. He flashes out, but they do get onto Aaron. Mobility able to free fire into Surdy, but it's Winnie jumping on the back line. Mobility has to flash away. The Void Rush, he's trying to burn down Mobility, but he finally stands up and stands tall. Surdy finally falls, and we've got a 2v2. Skytech and Dark Wings on the back foot. Denethor looking to push the pressure, but his health bar is getting a little bit too low. Mobility can't find an angle just yet. And the fight's going to simmer down, but Winthrop put up a fight.
Yeah, and any fight that you can try to go even with a team that is ahead in gold is a winning fight for you. I think there's a lot of moments there where we got to see Slew kind of stand up to their opponent. Winthrop finally allow for Mobility to kind of plant his feet and deal damage in that fight. A lot of gold also going over to them as they're able to grab that shutdown from Surdy. So now Winthrop kind of taking a look. We've got a minute and a half before this Baron. We've got 3 before the next Dragon. Summoner spells. Most importantly, no flash here onto Aaron or Skytech. And for Winthrop, no flash here for Mobility, so he is going to be a sitting target here. If Surdy's able to get on top of him, that could spell doom for Winthrop's game chances.
The one nice part about on-hit Varus is that you also get inherently tanky. A lot of on-hit Varus players like to optimize for that Jack show. And the question can become, when can Mobility get to that point with that shutdown he got from Surdy? Doesn't look like it should be in time at all for this Baron. Like you talked about, Flash and even Ghost likely to be down for that, what I feel is a game-defining fight.
So, here for Winthrop now. They need to be able to find a way to either find a pick before one of these objectives. get into position, find a flank, cause an uneven fight, because as is right now, when we get to these 5v5s, we've just seen time and time again, Surdy now finishing 3 items here. It's going to be so dangerous. Oh, if that lands on a Skytech, maybe that's their angle to try to look for something, but as is, Winthrop are going to be feeling a little bit more desperate. Maybe they can find Aaron, who doesn't have his flash. He has had a couple of these moments during the Collegiate Championship where he gets caught out, he gets found in a bit of an advanced position compared to the rest of his team, and he ends up going down. That is, I think, the only way right now Winthrop are going to be feeling comfortable about a fight.
So on that last fight, though, that Winnie, his damage it's getting a bit rougher, trying to dive onto mobility. I know he's under turret, but it really feels like Surdy and the Shockwave are the real disruptors of these fights. But with that top wave shoved in, they're able to clear out all that vision. In the same scenario that you highlighted so eloquently, Alk, Winthrop are going to have to walk into fog against an Orianna for this Baron.
Uh-oh. Orianna's still not here, right? Like, Orianna does have to teleport, and it would mean that Denethor does have time alone with this turret. Looks like instead of using his teleport, he's just going to try to move on first. I think this is a little bit dangerous. Like, this is the part of the game that's so difficult for Winthrop, is that they need either Wokal or Chookies to walk up, but if they do, they just get bursted really, really fast. They do not have a way to try to withstand a lot of that damage. And they need someone like Sword, whose flash is coming up, probably going to be in time after the dragon spawns. But if his flash is up and available, maybe, again, it is something that they can look for. It is an angle for them. They start to find Surdy. Now no flash onto Olaf, no ult. That is huge for the side of Winthrop now.
Yeah, Darkwing's still in the side lane, going to teleport in now, but like you mentioned, do Slew even want this fight without Surdy having the key summoner and the key ultimate? Winnie might look for a steal angle. A lot of ways in the pit if you are this Rek'Sai, Winnie. Trying to be the hero here to take away the Genji Baron buff, but it's actually mobility to secure it. Now Winnie's gonna have to get out of the pit, but he eats a dredge line, gets rooted up. Can they burn down the Rek'Sai? That's a
the Shockwave!
Shockwave from Darkwings just blows up the fight in an instant. They don't need Surdy when Darkwings is playing out of his goddamn mind and ace in an instant over to St. Louis University.
It's the Dark Wingdom immediately coming through. Your king has arrived, St. Louis. And it looks like they're just going to try to end the game here. We had all eyes on Surdy. It was a critical misstep there that allowed for Winthrop to get the Genji Baron buff. But it just doesn't matter. You could take the Purple Worm. Slew are going to take your Nexus now. And now it's 2 games in a row where Winthrop are in winning positions potentially. And now 2 games where Slew are in the objective win.
A title fight in the loser semis. Slew through the first punch, and now they've just knocked Winthrop down to their knees. Back in an 0-2 position as St. Louis University are running wild.
Oh my god. It is so insane that we're seeing our mid laner step up here if you are St. Louis. I mean, Darkwings has a lot of questions thrown at him, whether it was his time in Challengers League, whether it's his time here in Collegiate playing on Slew. He was brought onto this roster to win. He had a couple of friends that obviously he had been playing with, but really big stand-up moment up against his opponent here. And honestly, kind of exciting because now Slew on the brink of potentially going further on into this tournament, and Winthrop with a roster that had kind of surprised us at the end of winter last year. Kind of, we said at the very beginning, can they kind of bring it together for one final test? And now they're going to have to do what they did before in their first time for the Collegiate Championship. They're going to have to bring out a reverse sweep.
It's a crazy scenario, and that is the scenario we're in. The reality we're in, Hulk Battery. 0-2 for Winthrop. They're down on their knees. They're just happy the round bell rang, that they can get back and try and recollect themselves. And we'll see if they can when we go to that game number 3 draft with side selection. For now, though, we'll get another break going, get another word from our sponsors, and make sure to go check out Twitter because I'm sure that 5-man Shockwave will be over it in an instant. Until then, we'll be back after another short break.
Welcome, everyone.